I swear on my grandma's ashes the first thing I see when I pull up to her mountain cabin isn't some peaceful, memories moment. Nope, it's the HOA president in a fluffy bathrobe, holding a Starbucks like she's on vacation in my house telling me I'm the one trespassing. I'm standing there in the snow with my keys in my hand, engine still ticking from the drive up, and Brenda Hutchcraft swings my front door open like she's revealing a prize on a game show. Bathrobe. Barely wet hair. That smug little smile people wear when they think rules only apply to other humans. Behind her, I catch it in a half second. Men's boots by the fireplace, designer luggage slumped in the living room, makeup spread across my grandma's vanity like a crime scene in pastel. She leans into the doorway, blocks it with her shoulder, and snaps, "You're trespassing. Get out or I call the sheriff." The audacity, it was so loud I could practically hear it over the wind. And here's the part that still makes me laugh in a dark, exhausted way. This is the same woman who fined a neighbor $500 because their mailbox was the wrong shade of green. Not ugly green, not neon green. I mean the difference between hunter and forest, like she's some paint chip serial killer. That's Brenda. She turned HOA violations into performance art, and apparently she decided my late grandmother's cabin was her newest stage. But Brenda made one fatal mistake. Grandma's cabin sits at the end of a one-lane mountain road with one way in and one way out, and I control the exit. Let me back up, because none of this started with a bathrobe. It started 3 months earlier, when I inherited my grandmother Ethel's A-frame cabin in the Pine Ridge Mountains. Grandma Ethel was tougher than a $2 steak, Depression kid, raised 5 children on her own, built that cabin back when women weren't supposed to know which end of a hammer to hold. She had 3 acres, creek access, the kind of place real estate people call rustic charm, and then tack on another $100,000 for the view. Worth around $380 easy. My plan was simple: fix it up, use it as a weekend retreat, maybe rent it out sometimes for extra cash. Especially since my ex-wife took half my electrical contracting business in the divorce, which is a sentence that still makes my eye twitch. I didn't need drama. I needed peace, pine trees, and a place where nobody could serve me papers. Which is hilarious, because the first thing waiting for me was the HOA from hell. The Pine Ridge Community Association covered about 40 properties scattered around the mountain. Most folks were decent, retirees who just wanted to feed deer and complain about weather like it's a competitive sport. Dues were reasonable, $150 a month for road maintenance and snow plowing. Nothing crazy. Then there was Brenda. Picture the worst: "Can I speak to your manager?" Energy you've ever seen, give it a real estate license, 8 years of unchecked power, and a husband who works for county planning, and you've got Brenda. Power couple made in bureaucratic heaven. She didn't just enforce rules, she performed them. Like she got off on making people feel small. Mrs. Patterson got slapped with a $500 fine because her mailbox was hunter green instead of regulation forest green. The Johnsons got hit for $750 for parking their RV in their own driveway for 3 days. Brenda said it lowered property values and attracted transients. Lady, it was a brand new Winnebago, not a meth lab on wheels. And her masterpiece, she threatened the elderly Kowalskis with a lawsuit because their grass was half an inch too long. Mr. Kowalski had just had heart surgery, still on oxygen, and Brenda showed up with a ruler. A ruler. I'm not exaggerating. She measured a lawn like she was checking a child's height at a theme park. So yeah, when Grandma's obituary ran, Brenda sniffed opportunity like a shark smelling blood in cold water. It started with a letter demanding $400 in inheritance transfer fees. Not in the covenants. Not real. Just made up. Then came deferred maintenance violations on a cabin that was maintained better than most people's marriages. Each one arrived by certified mail, that heavy thunk against my front door like a legal grenade. Threats escalated, liens, foreclosure, court action, the standard bully playbook. And I'll own this part: one was tired. I was drowning in divorce paperwork, trying to keep my business afloat, trying to be a decent human being with a pulse. I didn't have the energy for HOA drama, so I did what exhausted people do. I told myself it was noise. Pay the bogus fees, survive her tantrum, move on. That was my first mistake. The second red flag came from the neighbors. People started asking weird questions like, "Hey, I heard your inheritance is tied up in court," or "Brenda said you might have tax issues." Tax issues. My property taxes were current. Probate cleared smooth. Deed was clean. But somehow Brenda was floating rumors like my ownership was questionable, like she was setting the stage for something ugly. Then I got the emergency caretaker assessment. 14 pages of legal gobbledygook about abandoned property concerns and interim protective management. Translation: the HOA was charging me $350 a month for someone to babysit my own cabin. And the kicker was this line about significant structural issues requiring immediate intervention. I'd been there 2 weeks earlier. Pipes winterized, shutters secured, pantry cleaner than my kitchen. Nobody had permission to step foot inside. So I drove up unannounced, and that's when I found Brenda, red-handed, living in my grandmother's cabin like she'd won it in a poker game. Back to the bathrobe moment. She's blocking the doorway, smirking, and I'm looking past her at the evidence. Her boyfriend's stuff, luggage, makeup, a half-finished bottle of fancy, whatever sitting on my grandma's old table like a middle finger. She'd been squatting for months while charging me HOA fees. When I demanded she leave, she didn't flinch. She just lifted her phone, already recording, and said, "You're harassing HOA personnel. I'm calling the sheriff." And that's when I realized Brenda wasn't just a bully. She was a con artist with a clipboard. Within 48 hours, she went nuclear. I get a certified package thick enough to stop a bullet. 14 pages from some fancy Harrison Blackwell and Associates type law firm. They claim I'm creating a hostile environment, harassing HOA leadership, all that. The demand? I have to give 72 hours written notice before accessing my own cabin, or face $1,000 a day in fines. Then her husband's county connections kicked in. An emergency septic inspection notice arrives the same day, claiming I have 30 days to hire contractors for a septic system repair that would take 6 months of permits, estimated cost $15,000. Here's what they were counting on: Grandma's cabin didn't have a septic system. It was built before 1970. It had a legal composting setup and graywater system that had been working fine since Kennedy was president. They invented a bureaucratic nightmare for infrastructure that didn't exist. So I go back up the mountain to document everything. Fresh snow in the air, diesel smell from my truck, the whole place quiet except wind in the pines. And the second my boots hit the driveway, sirens start wailing. Motion sensors, cameras, an alarm loud enough to wake bears in the next valley. Brenda steps out with her phone held up like she's filming a hostage situation. "You're violating the restraining order," she announces to the camera like she's doing a press conference. Restraining order? I hadn't been served with anything. Didn't matter. Neighbors came running because of the alarms, and Brenda put on a show, trembling voice, crocodile tears. "He's been stalking me, all of it." While she's busy acting, I'm scrolling through property records on my phone, and I find something in my grandma's documents that makes my heartbeat change. The original 1962 easement agreement. I'd seen it before, buried in Grandma's paperwork, but never understood it. Turns out Grandma didn't just buy a cabin, she negotiated perpetual easement rights with exclusive maintenance authority on the private road that leads to it. Meaning the only way to reach that cabin is a road I have the legal authority to close for maintenance, repairs, or safety work. In that moment, it was like a switch flipped. Brenda had trapped herself on a property she could only access through a road I controlled. I didn't say a word. I played confused. Apologized to the neighbors. Let Brenda think she'd won. Drove away like a defeated man. That night I didn't sleep. I kept hearing those sirens, and the crunch of snow under my own footsteps as I backed off my own property. She'd turned reality upside down, made herself the victim, made me the villain, and half the neighborhood was buying it because fear is easier than facts. Then she tried to steal the cabin for real. A lien notice hits my mailbox on a Friday, because apparently Brenda wakes up and chooses violence on weekends. $8,600 in accumulated fees and emergency assessments. Backdated violations. Snow removal charges for a driveway nobody used. A $1,200 emergency tree trimming that never happened. And the nastiest part, a $3,500 charge for unauthorized occupancy monitoring services during the exact months she'd been living there. She billed me for the privilege of her stealing my home. Then I got served foreclosure papers at my job site, right in front of my crew. Nothing says trust this contractor, like legal documents flapping in the wind while you're wiring a panel. My supervisor gave me the look that says, "So are you about to become a liability?" That weekend I went full forensic accountant. My lawyer subpoenaed HOA records, and what I found made my coffee taste like battery acid. Brenda had been robbing the community for years. Inflated invoices. Phantom snow removal bills. A landscaping company run by her brother-in-law charging 15 grand for trail maintenance on trails that existed only on paper. Total missing funds? Enough that I had to sit down when I added it up. Then I found out why she was so desperate for my grandma's cabin. Her own house was behind on mortgage payments. Real estate down and hit her income. She needed a lifeboat, and my inheritance was her flotation device. And then, this part still makes my throat tighten, she'd held an estate sale. She sold my grandmother's belongings to strangers. Antique furniture, hand-sewn quilts, family photos in original frames, my grandpa in uniform, grandma's nursing school graduation. 60 years of family history gone for pocket change. That's when it stopped being HOA drama and became personal. The restraining order finally showed up, delivered by a sheriff's deputy who looked embarrassed just holding it. It literally banned me from approaching my own property address. But Brenda's little legal stunt backfired in court. Judge asks for her current address, and she confidently gives my grandmother's cabin address. The judge pauses like his brain just hit a speed bump. My attorney slides the deed over. Clear title. Everything clean. Gavel comes down. Restraining order dismissed. Brenda ordered to vacate immediately. As we walk out, she leans close and whispers, "This isn't over. You have no idea what I'm capable of." And I remember sitting in my truck after, engine running against the cold, thinking people like Brenda don't lose gracefully. They don't reflect. They don't learn. They escalate. Sure enough, she called an emergency HOA meeting. Showed up with a PowerPoint, because of course she did, claiming I was a dangerous individual planning to turn the cabin into a drug den for Denver criminals. She brought her sister and a neighbor as fake witnesses, talking about me being violent, threatening, whatever story got the most gasps. Her solution, a special assessment of $25,000 per property to hire private security against me. That's when the twist came from a man I didn't expect, Colonel Patterson, retired Marine, the kind of guy who speaks once and the room shuts up. He stands up and says, "Where did our reserve fund go, Brenda? According to these statements, we should have enough to pave every road twice over." The meeting exploded. Neighbors demanding audits. Accusations flying. Brenda's smear campaign turned into an investigation of her own corruption, right there in the community center, like a live-action courtroom show. While she was busy losing control of the room, I was setting up trail cameras around my property. Totally legal. And those cameras showed me something that made my blood boil. Brenda wasn't just squatting, she was running an illegal bed and breakfast. Different cars every weekend. Couples with overnight bags. Brenda greeting them, handing out keys, saying, "Clear as day on audio, 200 a night for this exclusive mountain retreat." This. Like it belonged to her. Then the cameras caught her at 2 a.m., sneaking behind the cabin with a metal lockbox, digging near the old fire pit. The next morning I hiked up with a metal detector and found it 12 grand in cash and the HOA checkbook. She'd buried the evidence in my backyard. That's when I understood she wasn't just stealing. She was preparing to disappear. And then my phone rang, local reporter. Turns out they'd been investigating HOA corruption across Colorado, and my case lit up like a bonfire. At the same time, Brenda's husband, Derek, called me from somewhere he couldn't be overheard, voice shaking. He confessed. Fake inspections. Fake violations. He said Brenda threatened to ruin him, take his pension, destroy his life if he didn't help. And then he said the sentence that changed the air in my lungs. She's packing tonight. She's leaving before dawn. Okay. Fine. Run. Except she couldn't. Because that one-lane road was mine to close for legitimate repairs. So I did the most satisfying thing I've ever done in my life. I made a very real, very legal road maintenance plan. That creek crossing? Old culvert. Partially collapsed. A legitimate safety issue. I hired Rocky Mountain Excavation, got permits, ordered massive concrete box culvert sections from Denver. Delivered certified letters to every property, giving 72 hours notice. And then I put up the barriers at the last possible point, where that private road meets the county highway. By Sunday afternoon the road was a gaping trench. Completely impassable. And Monday night, snow started falling. I parked my truck where I could see the work zone, sipping bad thermos coffee, watching flakes drift through my headlights waiting for Brenda to notice the walls had closed. Monday morning she steps outside with her coffee, sees the barriers, and her mug hits the deck and shatters. Even from half a mile away I could see the panic in her body language, arms flailing at the excavation crew, yelling, demanding. The foreman just pointed at the posted schedule like, "Lady, take it up with physics." She tried filing an emergency injunction claiming false imprisonment. Judge tossed it in 5 minutes, because it's hard to claim you're being trapped when you're illegally living somewhere you were ordered to vacate. Then she called me and tried to bribe me. 50,000 cash, she said, like it was a friendly offer. I recorded everything, let her talk herself into a hole. She even claimed it was personal savings, which, sure, Brenda, and I'm Santa. The next twist hit like ice water. Derek called again, panicked. She's talking about burning the cabin down. Gasoline, matches, she wants to destroy evidence and blame you. That's when I stopped playing chess and called in the people who don't play at all. The FBI was already circling her for insurance fraud. My recordings, the trail cam footage, the buried checkbook, it was the final puzzle piece. Agent Martinez told me they'd be executing arrest warrants Monday morning. And wouldn't you know it, Monday morning came with fresh snow, an impassable road, a perfect little mountain stage, and nowhere for Brenda to run. At 7 a.m., 3 black SUVs roll up like a TV show. Agents step out, a sheriff's deputy, and the reporter shows up too, camera ready. Neighbors gathered at the barriers, Colonel Patterson, Mrs. Lucy, the Kowalski's people who'd been fined, bullied, and scared for years, standing there in winter coats with the same expression you see right before a thunderstorm breaks. The agents hiked up the trail. We waited in silence, breath hanging in the air. Then we heard it, Brenda screaming across the valley like a banshee. "This is illegal. I'm the victim. Jake orchestrated everything." 20 minutes later, she came down the snowy trail in handcuffs, designer boots slipping, still trying to perform for the invisible audience in her head. When the reporter asked her about embezzlement and fraud, Brenda snapped, on camera, "Those aren't crimes when you're protecting the community. If people were too stupid to understand my vision, that's their problem." That was her karmic mic drop, except it dropped on her own foot. Agent Martinez actually smiled and said, calm as could be, "Thank you for that statement, ma'am. Prosecutors will love it." And as that SUV door closed, something in my chest finally unclenched. Not because I'm a hero, I'm not. I'm just a guy who wanted my grandma's cabin back. Later, when the mountain got quiet again, I walked up to the cabin with my own keys. Snow creaked under my boots. The air smelled like pine and cold stone. I unlocked the door, and for the first time since Grandma died, it felt like the place exhaled. Here's the thing nobody tells you until you've lived it. Power doesn't always look like a gun or a badge. Sometimes it looks like a clipboard and a rulebook and a person who's learned how to weaponize procedure. Brenda hid behind legality the way kids hide behind bigger kids on the playground, and I learned, the hard way, that if you ignore bullies with paperwork, they don't get bored, they get bolder. The moment you assume, this is too ridiculous to be real, that's the moment someone like her starts writing your life for you. Brenda pled guilty later, federal felonies, restitution, the whole crash and burn. Derek lost his job. The HOA got audited, reformed, term limits, transparency. The community finally became what it always should have been, just neighbors in the mountains trying to live. And the best part, that road culvert got replaced for real, new concrete, better drainage, safer access. The trap fixed an actual problem Grandma fought for years. She would have cackled at the irony, then told me to keep my receipts. So here's what I want to ask you. Where's the line between protecting what's yours and becoming just as ruthless as the person who tried to take it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was what I did justice, karma, or something darker? And if you've ever dealt with an HOA tyrant, tell your story. I swear I read them, and I want to know how far you had to go before someone finally listened.